Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Another bright, cheery, cold morning out there. Good morning, Mrs. Busby.
Well, it's not as bad as it could be.
Mrs. Busby owns 50% of this show, so I always have to be nice to her.
Really 48, the contract says.
We haven't worked out the details with Mr. Rice yet on that. We'll get around to it. We always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. Very briefly today, it looks like our junior high season is now over in the basketball court. But the young men have done a fine job. They've had a great season, so kudos to them. And kudos, by the way, to the coaches who invest their time.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Without those coaches, we had, for instance, Jonathan Wright. He's helps coaches over there at the Emden.
Yes, he does.
Group. So that all these folks who put in that extra time helping these youngsters, kudos to them. So let's get right down to serious business. We have a Conway young lass with us this morning who does some important things for us in and around Logan County. Go right ahead,
yes.
Mrs. Busby.
Breann Titus is with Community Action here.
Yes.
Community Action goes back a long ways. It's been around forever, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
It really has. But, I think we all know that there's an outfit called Community Action, but we aren't too sure of the details.
Yes.
So we're going to kind of broach the subject from a couple angles. One is the practical side. What are you and what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then the other is that part of who you are and what you get to do has to do with the census,
yes,
which nails down who's where and what kind of financing you get so you can do what you do.
Absolutely.
The reason Mrs. Titus is with us this morning. By the way, are you related to Titus Moody?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
No, that's the name. There was an old radio in the good old days.
Yeah.
Radio.
We digress.
We just digress back to Fibber McGee and Molly and Titus Moody. Okay, census.
Yes.
We all heard about it. We're all talking about it. I don't think we all realize the ramifications and the importance of having a good and a proper and a correct census made. And therein lies the responsibility to the respondents.
Yes. Yes. It's so important. Judy mentioned earlier Community Action and what we do. We service 6 counties. So even though our central office is located here in Logan County, we actually oversee 6 counties when it comes to the social services.
You have a big territory.
Yes. So we have a large area. We have 13 different programs that we assist in, everything from infants to Head Start, all the way up to Meals on Wheels with our seniors. So we service everybody in between. So that means a lot of funding. And so we rely, majority of our funding comes from federal and state government. We apply for grants through the federal and state government, and that's what helps most of our funding. We also receive quite a bit of funding from private donations and local donors as well. But that federal and state funding is so reliant on population, and population of each county, population of each city, and a lot of that, when we write grants, we have to produce that information. We have to tell what the population is of each area and why it's important for us to service that population.
And this census is really the only way you can determine that, isn't it?
Yes, and obviously it's only for the next, it's for the next 10 years.
Yes.
So that's why it's super important. We look at the funding, the future of our funding, and to think that our funding could be impacted for 10 years is a lot, and it's super important to us to think we got to think about the future, which is one of the reasons why Community Action decided to jump on this Be Counted pledge and kind of jump in with the state of Illinois and also the U.S. Census and decide to educate and promote and help people complete the census, because we know how important it is just for our own impact. and everybody else's.
Imperative.
Yes.
You know, it just occurred to me, James, this may be my last census.
Probably both of ours.
Well, make sure you're counted this time.
I want to be
Do
sure
your
and get
part.
counted. I want to be sure and get grant writing.
Yes.
That's a specialty unto its own.
Oh,
And
yes.
to be a good grant writer, you just don't bring somebody because they're good in English or composition and so forth.
Right.
That's a specialty.
It is,
And,
yes.
A good grant writer is worth a lot of money.
Yes. And you know, it's funny, one of the things I mentioned earlier about our agency just being super awesome is the fact that most of us directors, we don't necessarily have one grant writer. I do a lot of it.
Yes, I'm
but
sure.
We also have all of our directors who manage programs. They write their own programmatic grants. And so each director has that ability, has done it, has experience, and that's rare. I mean, especially in nonprofit. I feel like a lot of nonprofits, they hire one particular person, and that's their main job is to grant write. And every one of our directors has experience doing that and manages their own grant, manages their own grant budget. We have a fiscal department that helps with that, but they really get to own their own space. And then as far as the unrestricted grant writing, getting additional grants to kind of help support the programming, I typically do that. They will reach out to me and ask for my assistance, and I will write grants and hopefully receive extra money. But it also is a hard process. It's a difficult process. There's so many people that need funding out there, and so it's a competitive process. And it's not always a positive ending to it all, but it's hard work, and it helps when we need it.
You know, I've been around an awful long time, and I've had a lot of different.
I noted that.
Yeah, getting a little long in the tooth here, and I've had a lot of different kind of jobs, but I've never done grant writing, and that's an art.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And honestly, you know, like you asked me earlier what my degree's in. You know, a degree in communication is really the talking side, that interpersonal communication. I had writing, obviously, experience. Writing's also a big part of that. But yeah, and grant writing kind of was new to me, and I came into this job not having any experience in grant writing, and I will say 4 years later, I have more than enough experience in grant writing.
I'd like to proudly point out this young lady is a graduate of Lincoln College.
Yes.
I'm happy to make that comment.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, well, that's fair, yeah.
That's
Yep.
fair.
I had a fabulous experience at Lincoln College.
Now,
Don't regret it
could
at
I have
all.
that in writing?
Yeah, I will absolutely do that. It was a great experience.
That's really great. Well, we're pretty proud of our mission up there. We've got some dedicated teachers, and
Yes.
we have an excellent administration.
Absolutely.
Top drawer. And so I'm happy to shout out a good word or two for Lincoln College.
Well, it's just visible proof of the fact that we have things here in Lincoln and Logan County that are going pretty darn well.
And
Yes.
there's a Logan County girl who is, as the old expression Don Knotts would say, she done good.
She done good, yeah, she sure done. Okay, how many programs, just by number, do you oversee?
Me personally?
You personally?
Oh,
Well, you
boy.
have to oversee them all.
Yeah. A lot of my programs, I would say, are what we would consider admin, because I do all the marketing, website, social media for the agency, but I also oversee the volunteer program, and then I oversee our foster grandparent program as well. So that's kind of the two programs that I help oversee, but then I do a lot of the other stuff for agency-wide, fundraising.
So you work 28 hours a day then?
Yeah,
Looks like
absolutely.
we're getting our money's worth. That's a fact.
Yeah, really.
Our guest this morning, Breann, Conrady Titus.
Yes.
And by the way, you can tell Grandpa Ben and Grandmother Rose, they sure picked their granddaughter wisely.
Yes.
We're very happy to have you with us.
I'm the only granddaughter, FYI.
Oh, is that right?
Is that right?
No.
Yes. There's great granddaughters, but I'm the only granddaughter.
Well, you got to be the apple, so that's great.
Of course.
Yeah.
I get a little, that extra special attention.
Well,
we won't tell the boys that.
That's the way it works. That's the way it works. Tell us about your education after leaving Lincoln College.
Yes, so I transferred to Illinois State University and did 2 years there, and then graduated there in 2007, believe it or not. So it's just been a few years.
And you've been with Community Action how long now?
4 years last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a great experience.
And a learning experience, no doubt.
Oh,
because
yes.
you deal with every age level.
Yes. And that's something that our executive director, I think, really is amazing at, is the professional development of our staff. That's a huge focus for her, and I honestly can say I spent 8 years in higher education, in recruitment, and thought I'd kind of seen it all, done it all at that point. But coming into nonprofit was a whole new world, and something that our executive director really wanted to make sure that we knew the ins and outs. So she really passes her knowledge down and teaches us how to do that with the grant writing, the budget management, the professional development side, the coaching of our staff. So she really teaches us from the top down and helps us manage our own departments and manage our own staff. And I feel like that is something that people don't realize about community action is, we have, even though we're a social service agency, we're the oddball in that world, because we don't focus on just the handout, we focus on the hand up, and we really focus on the business side of building our staff, which is rare in a social service agency. So we're kind of
comfortable in her shoes out there at her desk, and you can see that. It comes through very strongly. We also have handouts. We have to hand out a commercial once in a while.
Yeah.
And so at this point in time, we're going to recognize our sponsors. Go right ahead, Mr. Reich. Right back live here in the studio, WLCN. Viewpoint would be the program of the day, being Wednesday. As you might, both of you listeners out there who listen to us so regularly might remember, we come on each Wednesday morning at 8:15 to 900 hours. Mrs. Busby is the booking agent for Viewpoint for the most part, and she has booked on a very homely young lass today, and somebody who's given us a bang for the buck, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
She works with the Community Action, which is and I want to emphasize it's a very important organization of this community. There's so much need out there that those of us who are kind of walking around with our heads in the clouds don't realize the importance of somebody like what Community Action does. So, Breann, Conrady Titus, we're happy to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You're bringing some expertise to your position at your desk, and I think from the conversation I've been listening to, you're filling your shoes very, very well. So let's talk about grant writing a minute. I alluded to that earlier in the program this morning. And what grants do you write?
Well, it ranges.
Apply for?
Yeah, it ranges. Typically, it depends on what program is in the most need sometimes. So we have our grants that are kind of an annual thing. We have to recompete, but typically they continue.
Reinvent the wheel.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then every once in a while, we have a program that we have more need for. We need more money. So whether that's nutrition or that's transportation, and we go out searching for those grant opportunities that are available for those two things. We try to go to different foundations all over the state of Illinois to grant write for different programs. Sometimes that's a startup program. We've received money before to start up a food pantry co-op. So it really depends on where the need is. And that's kind of where my job tends to shift sometimes, because I scoop in and take up the need. And that's one of the things that we've done with the census. It came out and we said, we need somebody to man this. And my boss said, can you handle it? And I said, let's do it. So that's kind of where my job shifts a little bit here and there, depending on what I'm out speaking about. But it's usually always extremely important, and I feel like getting the word out is number one priority. So
you mentioned food pantry.
Yes.
That's a very important part of your work, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a busy business.
Yes, and we are a different food pantry than what is, I guess, considered normal in the food pantry world. Ours is a co-op style. So the way that people earn shopping in the food pantry is they volunteer with our agency. So they volunteer 2 hours a week, and that gives them a shopping pass into our food pantry. It's an 85-point shopping pass, which is somewhere equivalent to about $80 to $85 worth of food. They can do that weekly, and our food pantry is set up like a grocery store. So they actually get to go in and shop and pick out what food items they want for their household instead of just being handed food. So
I like this kind of tit for tat business.
Yep.
Of you're not feeling like you're getting something for nothing. You're feeling like you're earning it.
Absolutely.
I think that's important to people.
Absolutely. And
It's
a lot of
hand
times,
up thing as opposed to hand out.
Yep. And they get to put that experience, whatever they're doing volunteering, they get to put that experience on a resume if they're unemployed at the current moment. So they get to do that. And it's just it's a really good experience to say, you know, we're going to help you where you stand. We're going to help you whether it's in a crisis mode or just something that you need to learn to manage your lifestyle a little bit better, your budgeting, what have you. And we're going to help you where you need it. But, you know, we're going to be able to give back while you're doing that. So
your emphasis is really heavy on the hands up side.
Yes. Yes.
648-5510 is our phone number. Somebody may have a comment and or a question of Mrs. Titus, who's obviously, to me, doing a great job out there. It's pretty,
I'd say.
Pretty evident that she knows what the heck she's doing. And others, just like Breann, they're out there in that community action office. We've had other guests before from Community Action, and it's impressive. As I said a minute ago, those of us who just kind of walk around their head in their cans and thinking about going to the next cup of coffee downtown don't realize that there is every day real need in this community, and some people have a crying need, and you're helping fulfill that need. So you're putting someone in the bar beside your elbow, you know.
Yeah.
Now, what sort of volunteering type activities do you offer for people to choose from?
It can range. It can range based on their skill set. So we have administration side where they can help with data entry, filing, office type work.
And anymore, I'm the only fossil that doesn't do computers and technology.
Yes.
So really, most people are conversant with it anyway.
Yeah, most. I have some that, when I ask them if they're comfortable on a computer, they'll look at me kind of funny and say, I'd prefer not to. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't want to put them in a position that they're uncomfortable. But we also want to, if they're willing, we want to be able to teach them a new skill while they're at it. And so if they're somewhat willing, but they're just nervous because they haven't had a lot of experience, that's when we can come in and say, you know what? Let's teach you how to use a computer, because if you would go and get a job somewhere, most likely you're going to have to use it. So let's teach you that new skill. But we also have janitorial needs in all of our offices. So we have a lot of volunteers that come in, community service volunteers that come in that help with the janitorial stuff. They've helped with the landscaping outside. We've had a community service volunteer paint the outside of our building before. That was something he had a career in, was loves painting. It was something he enjoyed. We needed a paint job. It worked out for everybody. We saved a lot of money.
Twofer.
Yeah, so it worked out for him. He got his hours done doing something that he enjoyed, and of course the building got a little bit of a facelift.
Sure.
So it works out for both people.
Now, you have programs that range about from the cradle to the grave, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's hard to say that sometimes, but yeah, I mean, unfortunately, with our Meals on Wheels program, sometimes that is the what we see. Sometimes there's a week where we have one of our clients pass away, and that's unfortunate, but we feel like we have done the due diligence up until that point to keep them in their home, to keep them fed, making sure they're getting a healthy meal, and to make sure that somebody's checking on them until that time comes.
Now, somebody has to cook those meals.
Yes.
Unless she's serving off a lot of banquet frozen dinners or something.
No, they're cooked in our kitchen.
So isn't that a volunteer opportunity too?
Potentially. We have 2 ladies that work in our kitchen, which we have a kitchen at central office, and 2 ladies that push out over 500 meals a day.
Oofta.
Say that again, please.
2 ladies that push out over 500 meals a day.
Jeez, I'm lucky if I do one.
That's staggering.
Yes, because they do
is.
our
And that
Head
points
Start.
to what I just said earlier, how much need there is.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we have a need for 500 meals a day,
Yes.
that's incredible.
Yeah, because they service our Meals on Wheels. They do all of our Head Start meals. They possibly do some internal catering as well with some of our meetings that we host at the agency. But it's a big job. That's
How
for
does
sure.
this work? An old gaffer like me is alone and needs help with his nutrition.
Yes.
How does that work? How do I know who to call or where to reach out?
Yep. So we have Becky Lehman is our nutrition services director. She's located at central office. So they can just call the main line, which is 732-2159. Ask for Becky. She will talk a little bit with the potential client and go over an assessment with them to determine what the need is. Typically, if they're at home, they live alone, they're unable to cook their own meals for the most part, not fully homebound, but don't get out much. There is not an income requirement or anything like that, and we will deliver. We deliver 3 days a week to them, and they get 5 total meals, so some days they get double meals, but we deliver to their doorstep, and we do kind of a wellness check, make sure they're feeling okay for the day, make sure that if, we've had situations where we've walked in and they don't have heat in their home. And so we call the next resource and we make sure we get that taken care of for them. We call their emergency contact if necessary. We've walked in a couple of times and they haven't been feeling well. And we've had to call their emergency contacts. We've had to call 911, but just making sure that they're safe.
Your representative calling on them could be the only person they see in a given day or week for that matter.
And it does happen pretty frequently, where our people is the only face that they see.
Oofta.
Yeah, so we make sure that they're doing okay. So
let's talk about the other end of the spectrum.
Yes.
Head Start. That's a big part of your outfit.
Absolutely.
How many little ankle biters are involved?
There's a lot. I know there's over 70 some just in Logan County, and that's just in the one county. I don't know exactly how many total we have, but there's a lot, and it's 0 to 5. So we have the early Head Start. Yep. We have the early Head Start that is about 6 weeks to 3 years, and then we transition them into the school readiness side, which is 3 to 5, getting them ready for kindergarten. And we have full day center-based programming, and really getting them ready for the next stage of school.
How many teachers do you have here in Logan County, for instance?
Well, each location has at least one head teacher and then 2 classroom assistants. So there's 3 in the classroom at all times.
Is there a volunteer opportunity there as well?
Yes, we do have volunteers that help with the Head Start and keep kind of that flowing as well. So sometimes the teachers can focus on the kids, and then we have a volunteer that focuses on the stuff that needs to be prepped for the classroom. so that it kind of doesn't take them away from the kids and their focus.
This is not something that just happens.
Oh gosh, no.
There's a lot of preparation necessary. Now, the education, early childhood education, you're deeply involved in that. And boy, the community is a winner for that. Little rugrats run around with unattended, and there's a lot of that, unfortunately. And all that does is beget future problems for them.
Yeah.
When they're with you folks, they realize that somebody cares.
Yeah, and we focus on the entire family. That's something that's also, I think, missed sometimes, is we don't just focus on the kid, we focus on the entire family. So we get the family involved. They're required to do activities at home with their children, so they learn how to deal with, once they go into full-time public school, they know that there's going to be homework and how to act and how to help them with that. So we get them involved at home. We have them come to family nights so we can teach them about different resources. We encourage them to take our Hand Up Project classes, which is budget management, Financial Peace University. So we really try to encompass the whole family. We also have professional development coaches that work with the families and help them through some of those obstacles that maybe they don't know how to deal with, or they don't have the support system. So many of us were so fortunate to have a support system that we did. I was one of those. I have a great support system, but not everybody has that.
No.
And so Community Action and our coaches get to be that support system for them. And sometimes that's as simple as driving them to the dentist appointment for their child to have dental work done.
Now, when you have your family night gatherings, do you observe then as a professional the interaction between the parents and the child, and are you sometimes able to offer suggestions as to how they might consider handling these kinds of issues?
Yes, and we also do home visits, so we get to see them kind of interact in the home as well and give them suggestions. We also have a new application that we've rolled out, and this was Allison's baby. She kind of helped develop it and get it going. Yes, our executive director. And it is teaching them. It's a weekly application where it's an activity that they have to do. And sometimes that's soul searching. Sometimes that's setting an alarm for the same time every day. Sometimes that's going to bed at the same time every day. It's little things. Sometimes it's getting dressed every day, even if you have nowhere to go. Just teaching them different life skills and teaching them that critical thinking part. And it's for 52 weeks. So we stay with them for a year to help them kind of move through those motions.
Oh, but that's invaluable.
Yeah.
You don't get a book of instructions when you get a baby. The first one comes along and there it is.
Or life in general. And if you don't have a support system, you have nobody to teach you the rights and the wrongs, unfortunately. So some of the customers that we meet, they don't know sometimes the difference between the right and the wrong, and we try to teach them that.
Well, and think how much the community benefits. The difference between right and wrong, in many cases, might be the difference whether they're in the courthouse before one of the judges.
Yes.
Those things can happen and do happen.
Yep.
And so it's your influence on, gosh, how many youngsters you run through there every week. They're imparting a great impact to our community.
Now, the children who are in Head Start, what is their schedule with you? Is a Head Start a daily program, a weekly program?
No, it's every day. It's every day. It's all day, 5 days a week. Some of our, I can't remember if some of our sessions have 4-day-a-week classes, but we do full day. Some of our sessions we're doing half days throughout the last several years, but we realized that that's difficult for a parent who is trying to work for a living because they were having to make special arrangements. And so if we have full day, then they can work during the day while their child is at school. And this program is income based, but there's no charge to the parent if they meet the income requirements for their child to attend. So they're getting education at no charge to them, so they can focus on working and raising income for their family. So
I was recently made aware of a situation where the mom didn't fully understand the education of her kids, in that if she stayed up to watch some movie on TV last night, she was tired this morning.
Yes.
And so she just didn't get the kids off to school. And that's a different thought system,
yeah,
than you would expect.
We do a lot of research on that. Our executive director does a ton of research on that, making sure that they understand that, there is a different viewpoint. There's a different way to look at things. And sometimes their brain functions differently. There's science behind it. And we talk about that when we do our strategic planning on an annual basis, to say, is it motivation? Is it that they don't even have the critical thinking piece? Is it their brain is functioning differently? And I think originally we went the motivation route. We thought they're just not motivated to make a change. And as we've gone in and we read books about it, and we watch TED Talks about it, and we do research about it as an agency, and once you get deeper and deeper into it, it really is about that critical thinking part, and their brain functions differently. And so that's what this application does, is to get them to teach their brain to think differently, to think more of a wealthy mindset than a poor mindset.
See, now I think that's just absolutely miraculous, because in a situation like that, for instance, I'd think, well, didn't your mother teach you?
Right. And unfortunately, sometimes they don't have that mother role model, or the mother role model was in the same mindset as they are. It's a cycle. And so sometimes they say, well, my mom didn't make me go to school, so why should I make my kids go to school? And I'm the opposite. I think we can all agree. Like, I would say, my mom made me go to school, and so I do the same thing to my children. So you do learn from your environment, and you do learn from your support network, but that support network isn't always the positive experience.
Well, that is the reason that you have to interact with the entire family, isn't it?
Yes, because the hope with doing that is that if we help the entire family, by the time that child is old enough to start making their own choices and making their own decisions, when it comes to being in public school or as they get older, that we're going to kind of, I guess, hit that rotation off before it starts again. So that child has a different upbringing than their parents did, is kind of the hope. So that way maybe they won't have that same mindset, or they won't live in poverty for the rest of their lives. Because the child at that point, when they're an infant up to 5 years old, they don't really get a choice in their living situation a lot of times. So if we help the parents make their life better, by the time that child has their own impact in society, then they get to make better decisions.
I ask a question here, philosophical question, I guess. Would this program come under the broad title of socialism, per se? And if it does, Crazy Bernie's right about some things.
That editorial comment is not necessarily backed by the staff and management.
Yeah, you had to put that little...
Oh, dear.
Hey, but seriously, this is a vital program to community.
Yes.
And children, they're pawns, and they need, many of them, God knows, thousands need help. And on a direct way right here in Lincoln, Logan County, and your other counties that you have jurisdiction.
Yes.
they're getting a direct impact as a result of somebody's caring.
Yeah.
So if that's socialism, I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Well, somebody has to show people that let's think about this issue because there's a better way we can approach it.
Yeah, and sometimes that child just needs somebody to care for them.
That's right.
I had a coach tell me the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, and she said that there's a little boy and he just likes to climb up in her lap and he just likes to feel like there's somebody there and then somebody that's caring for him. And he gets a big smile on his face every time she comes in the door, and just loves the attention that he gets whenever she comes in. And that's important. We realize we take that for granted sometimes. I think that our kids need that attention. They need to know that somebody's there for them. They need to know that there's that security, and they need to know that they're cared for and they're loved.
Is telling your child, "I love you more than anything," a part of the whole, a good part of it, or is it just words in the wind? How often do they have to hear that they're valued?
Well, I don't know about them, but my kids want to hear every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. That's called reinforcement. That's positive reinforcement.
Right. Yes, and they say it back to me, so it all is good. But that's super important, at least to me. So I feel like if they're similar to other children, they need to hear that often.
Yes.
And just know that, they are loved.
648-5510. Somebody may have had some interaction with Community Action. They're out there on the west side of town, and we're all aware of the fact that we have Community Action. So what's that? And why do we have that?
Yeah.
People, we just don't know because we hadn't had the opportunity to be exposed.
Yeah, and it's sad actually that I feel like even 4 years later, there's still so many people that don't understand the impact that we have. They don't understand what we do, and that's why we do things like this. And that's one of the things too that is kind of neat about promoting the census is when I've been going out and doing a lot of talks, I get a chance to tell people that I don't normally get in front of. I get to tell them about our agency. So it's kind of a dual thing. I get to tell them about Community Action, all the amazing things that they do, and the impact they make in the community. And then I also get to tell them how they can help us, in a different way. Because honestly, it's weird to say, but filling out that census really does help our agency and so many other community organizations as well.
And we've gotten so involved in Community Action, we kind of digress from the standpoint of the subject of census and how terribly important it is.
Yeah.
Politically, if nothing else, the way they draw political maps.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've been telling everybody is that, people want to know why is it important? Well, for one, funding. We've talked a little bit about that already. It actually helps decide allocation for over $675 billion for the next 10 years. So $675 billion is super important to know where it's going. And
you don't get a do-over for 10 more years.
Yeah, and that ranges from nonprofits like us, that ranges from first responders. I gave the example the other day to a presentation that I was doing that, if we count the population of the city of Lincoln and we say there's only 2,000 people living here and there's really 5,000 people living here, they're only going to receive funding for 2,000 people when it comes to the local police department, the sheriff's department, and so they're not going to receive enough funding to be able to have enough first responders that are needed for the population of the town. And so that's another reason why it's super important to fill it out correctly. And there's a lot of rumors out there about what the census does and doesn't do, and people get nervous that they're going to get told on if there's multiple people living in the household, but that's not the case. They just want to make sure the population is accurate.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Caller called in on the silent phone.
Okay.
How and when will we be counted?
Yes, great question. So they will send out...
This guy's a smart listener.
Right? So they will be counted. The first round of invites will be sent to addresses via mail March 12th. So they will come out March 12th.
That's coming right up.
Yes, that's right around the corner. They are coming out to every address. The census is attached to an address, not to a family. That's important to know. And on the invitation letter, there is a unique census ID number. And that is important because this is the first census ever that's been able to be completed online. It can also be completed by phone, but it can be completed online. And that unique census ID number that's on that invitation needs to be entered online or to the person that is taking the information via phone.
Now, if it's tied to the address,
yes.
In my neighborhood, there are two houses.
That's a rough neighborhood, by the way.
There are two houses that are called sale pending.
Yes.
You know. So what in the world does that do for census situations?
Yes. So April 1st is considered Census Day. And so when you complete the census, it will ask you how many people are living in your home as of April 1st. So if on April 1st. So if you're filling out the census before April 1st, that's fine. But if you're going to have somebody move in with you on April 1st, they need to be counted in the census.
Okay.
If somebody of sale pending, if they move into that home by April 1st, then they would complete the census based on that address, the new address that they're in. Wherever they're currently living as of April 1st is where they will report.
You know, that's got to be a heck of a job. By George, we're such a mobile society.
Yes, and that is why they will send multiple reminders. They do have, they've been working on canvassing for quite some time where they have U.S. Census takers. They hire people to go and make sure that they have the addresses correct before they start sending out this information. They also look for vacant homes. A lot of times there's houses that are vacant for whatever reason, and they look for that so they can mark that off so they don't have to check that. And then once May 1st hits, May to June, they will actually send out census takers to all of the addresses that have not responded. And they will only go to the houses that have not responded. So, and then again, if they have a situation where there's a vacant house, they will identify that so that they know that that's why it's not being counted.
So you know what, Judith K?
Yeah, no.
If Ev Dirksen were alive, we'd be promoting her for a job out in the swamp because she knows what the heck's going on.